Today at Better Bee, we're going to show you how to use a foundation mold. The mold is made out of a very flexible rubber, and you should get some sort of a form to lay it in that has edges that will catch the molten wax, because some might overpour. And nail down the edges where the two pieces of the mold come together so that they stay put and you don't have to keep arranging them as you go. Now, the technique that works the best is to pour out of a container that's just a little wider than this form, and this is a bread pan. Don't worry about pouring it past the edges. In fact, that's a good idea. After it's poured, wait about 2 minutes. A little bit less would be fine. The sheet of new foundation is still warm and flexible when you take it away from the mold. This was one of our first attempts and it got stuck near the end. That's not really a problem. You could just trim that bad part off and have a piece of foundation that's a little shorter left to right. The bees will fill in that area. This foundation will be thicker than what you buy. The typical weight of one deep piece of foundation made out of beeswax is about 1/6 of a pound. What we were seeing here was a little more than 1/4 of a pound, sometimes 1/3 of a pound. But the bees will like that, and they'll draw it out even better when they have more wax to start with. Now, why would you want to make your own foundation? You might want to use your own scrapings or cappings, and that way you would know that the wax in the foundation was not from anybody else's bees. Another reason you might make your own foundation is just because you want to try new things, or you want to use up your cappings and scrapings, but you don't like making candles. You could also use this foundation to make rolled up candles. It will take some practice, but not too much. We only did about 4 pours and we were getting to be pretty good with it. What I would not recommend is using a foam brush, because then only one side will have the hexagon shapes on it. The top side had already solidified when we shut the mold, and it was just completely smooth. This might be a good technique just to make small details to apply to the surface of candles. So just showing a few more of our attempts, and you could see in some places it was poured quite thin, and you could see the orangeness of the mold through the wax. You might have waited a little too long to release that one. It was kind of cracking. It wasn't flexible. It seems that getting it to come up off of the mold when you're done is more related to the timing. Don't wait too long. And also related to just your skill of rolling it up off. We did learn that it's helpful to cut the end back near the join of the mold pieces, because that's the hardest piece to get to release from the mold. Looks good. Oh, look at that. Just a little bit too little wax on the left, but that's fine. In order to use the wax foundation, you need to have some reinforcement, so we're going to use this wooden frame that has wires in it. You can get the wooden frame and put your own wires in, or you can buy it assembled with wires. So we're going to embed the wires into the wax foundation with this embedding tool. It's like a wheel with a groove running down the middle, and that fits on the wires. And this item on the left is an embedding board, and that's what you fit your frame onto to do the job of embedding. It has different grooves in it, and that lets you line up and set different size frames on it. So the first thing we got to do is get this foundation into the groove in the bottom bar and attached up there at the top bar. So I pried out the wedge. I should have mentioned this is a wedge frame, and there's a detachable wooden piece at the very top. This bottom edge on the foundation is a little too thick from the pouring, so I'm going to have to shave it off. It won't go into the groove yet. So if you had bought foundation, this sort of thing wouldn't happen, but we're making our own foundation here. So a little bit of custom shaping and we'll get it fitted in there. Everything should work now. Now we got to tack in this wedge at the top, and I don't want to use a big heavy hammer, so I found this small pry bar. I'm pre-nailing 3 very small nails before I start, and this makes it easier and I have less strikes while it's next to that foundation. Those nails are already halfway in. So press the wedge in, and now it's holding the foundation firmly at the top. I'm going to just tap those 3 nails all the way in. I am up on a table here, a folding table, which has a little bit of bounce to it, and I really should be finishing this on the floor, which was much firmer. Keep that in mind if you're having trouble with nailing, that you should be on a really firm surface. Anyways, we managed that. Lay it down with the wires up so that the foundation is between the wood embedding board and wires. And then you just line up the groove in the middle of the embedding wheel and run along that wire. We don't want to cut right through, we just want to press the wire down in. So even though it looks like a tiny little pizza cutter, don't treat it like one. Another option is an electric embedding device and a 12-volt battery. And now the foundation is nice and stiff, it's not going to go flop. So that's how you start from some cappings and get yourself your own molded foundation.